gone total heel on the Eclipse now?
Well, listen. I mean, I did all the right things, okay?
Oh, no.
Normally I'm like, who's the coach at Boston College who said, I'm looking up at it with no glasses. I'm not worried about my eyesight. Ask me tomorrow if I'm blind. Remember, he said that just the other day.
Yes.
So, but you know what? I heeded the warnings, and we had some people over at the humble abode, the palatial estate, and we did all the preparation, had the glasses. They were the right kind of glasses that had been approved by NASA and all that kind of stuff, thoroughly tested.
Don't tell me you had clouds.
And sat out there, and my neck was killing me, and it was hot and humid, and the gnats and all this sort of stuff. But I sprayed bug spray all over the place, so that was cool. And saw the beginning of it, saw the moon starting to eat into the sun, clouds in and out. Then about the halfway point, got a good look at that. So, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that was it. Big old black dark cloud that had to be moving at the pace of a snail was probably, from a nautical mile standpoint, about 10 miles long. Moved. I got eclipsed by that.
You got eclipsed by the clouds.
Didn't see it.
So I
didn't see it. It got dark.
I was out here at humble world headquarters.
Were you here on Main Street?
On Main Street in Washington, in our downtown studios. I walked literally right outside and had a very perfect view of it. It was right at the top of the sky. The sky was as dark as night when totality happened around 41 minutes past 2 o'clock.
Now here's the question.
It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Did you and John Mart hold hands while you were?
No,
watching?
John Mart was 2 blocks down. He was covering different events around the city, trying to get people who didn't know about the eclipse, and then he went to the State House to take it in on his own.
Who didn't know about the eclipse?
Yeah, you were going around trying to find people who didn't know about the eclipse.
Who didn't know that there was an eclipse happening. They just thought it was getting dark at 2:40.
Well, I was just trying to see, maybe someone had forgot the day. I mean, or maybe they just showed up late. And mostly that's what I found is people at around, 1:20 when the moon started to cross over the sun. People were like, wait, it's already going now? I thought it was at 2. They just didn't realize that this was a multi-hour event.
It's a process. I'm just glad it's over.
It's a swing and a miss.
We can get back to normal. It doesn't happen again until August 12th, 2045. We'll all be here to talk about it then. So we have plenty of time to prepare for it. Get your glasses ready and all that.
Get your hotels booked and everything like that.
Really. Anyway, traffic around downtown Columbia is fine.
It was great.
I've heard out on the interstates leaving the area, it's kind of heavy, but as you're heading into town around the city, it's cool.
And y'all come back now. You hear?
How about 9,600 fans at the Fireflies game?
That's
today.
crazy.
That's a franchise record.
They went up over 300,000 fans for the year, which is crazy.
Yeah. All right, so good to have you with us. Besides everything happening today, let's get to the more important stuff, and that's the sports world. Coming off a weekend in which we had major scrimmages at USC and Clemson. The best news out of both, no significant injuries suffered by either. And we kind of turned that corner for the most part. In fact, at Clemson, they're practicing tonight. They're coming off around 7. And Dabo Swinney said they are now pointing towards their opener against Kent State. And I think that Will Muschamp is pretty close to getting the Gamecocks to where they'll start working on NC State. I still think they're a couple of practices away from that tonight. And Willie P is heading over to the stadium. Willie P will be at Willie B in a little bit, heading over there for the USC Open practice.
Yes, and
for the fans.
They're taking a little advantage of the influx of crowd here in the Columbia area, trying to get some of the fans who might have come in for the eclipse and get them to stick around for a free open practice at Williams-Brice Stadium. And it's something that honestly we don't get to see a full practice ever during this part of the year, so it's kind of a cool thing for not only us in the media but also fans of USC to go out and I'm sure they won't show a whole lot, but maybe there'll be some 11-on-11 work. I tried to get a question into Will about kind of what to expect or what fans can expect, and he was normally as he normally is, a little evasive about it, but but it should be a lot of fun out there today.
Yeah, it's going to be a little warm and a little humid. It'll feel like it's going to feel probably when they play NC State in a couple of weeks, but they're inviting all the Gamecock fans and those in town to come out and watch. And now you cannot record at the third period. So, they're going to have the camera police and the photo police out and about in the stands. And if they see you doing something, they will admonish you and probably ask you to put your camera away. And if you don't, then they can get a little nasty with you. So just follow the rules. So we'll have coverage of that. We're going to have Willie P out. Also, we'll hear from Muschamp and from Sweeney from the scrimmages this past weekend. David Shelton will be here a little later, and we'll talk about the first Friday night of the high school football season. Some great games. That Somerville-Spartanburg game, what a finish they had in that one down in Somerville. And the Green Wave came away with the victory. USC picked up a nice commitment over the weekend from Josh Vann, the wide receiver from Georgia. We'll talk more about that in the recruiting segment. How about Doc Redmond? How about that Clemson sophomore? Good gracious. 60-foot putt on the 17th for Eagle, and then a pressure pack putt on the 18th for birdie. And then he just had to hold it together on the playoff hole and watch his opponent fall apart, and he wins the U.S. Am.
He's going to get to play in the Masters and the U.S. Open next year. That'll be a lot of fun for him, and he's doing it, as you said, was only a sophomore.
And he's on the Walker Cup team.
True.
As a result of that as well, or perhaps his entire resume gets him on the Walker Cup team. So congratulations. Larry Penley, the Clemson golf coach, will be with us around 7:45 to tell us more about Doc Redmond, who, he had to really scratch and claw just to make it into the match play portion of the U.S. Amateur. And what a grind that is. 36 holes on Sunday with all the pressure and to hold it together.
After you've already played as much as you have in consecutive days, that's not an easy haul for you, especially to kind of go through that 36 hole. And I believe, just the way that whole thing plays itself out, it's a very quick turnaround for the whole thing.
All right, we've got the AP poll out. We'll go over that after the break and talk about any surprises that we think are there, who's overrated, who's underrated in the AP Top 25, who's left out that maybe should be in there. We'll talk about that. Also, your phone calls at 800-956-7266. Certainly welcome to hear from you tonight. 800-956-7266. Our email, talkback at sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. That's how you can reach us tonight here on Sports Talk.
Yeah, I find it interesting, and I always kind of get this way about the AP poll coming out this early. If it was me, I wouldn't want to see any polls until the 4th and 5th week of the regular season, because we know so very little about all these teams from how little we get to see of them in practice. We're going basically off of all of our observations from last year, combined with the recruiting rankings from a year ago as well. You don't know how 18 to 22-year-old kids are going to perform. In my mind, I think it's a little disingenuous to have the polls out this early, but it's a business for them.
Well, the poll was created back in the 30s, not so much to be accurate about depicting how the season is going to play out as much as to give people something to talk about.
Right.
It's just simply a point of conversation.
No, it's great for people in our business.
Absolutely.
But I think
we love debating the polls, and you cannot put too much stock. You can't put any stock in the polls. There's only one poll that matters, and that's the poll that comes out from the
College
selection committee, and that doesn't come out until mid-October. That's when it gets serious.
I just think it's a disservice to those who are outside of what I like to call the college football glitterati, outside of like the 20 teams that you always see there, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Southern Cals. It makes it very, very hard to jump that glass ceiling.
No question about it. Reputation, because it's a people poll, and people voting, they have their leans and
biases.
They have their favorites and their biases, and a lot of them lean on historical data that's stored way back in their mind and think, Notre Dame should really be in here simply because they're Notre Dame.
It's kind of dumb.
Be right back. Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and Jared Rogers Martin. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. USC has a open practice tonight over at Williams-Brice Stadium. So if you're a Gamecock fan, you want to get a glimpse of your team, head out over there and take a look. Willie P will be heading over to watch the Gamecocks in person for the first time and get a feel. What do you want to see, your first chance to actually see them in action on the field? What in particular do you want to zone in on?
I want to see the sharpness of Jake Bentley and the chemistry between him and his receivers. I want to see if we have anything outside of the principal players on the defensive side of the football. Like, we know what we're going to see out of Sky Moore. We know what we're going to see out of Bryce and Allen Williams. And there's experience at the cornerback position. I want to see somebody on the defense who is not one of those aforementioned people open my eyes. I want to be excited about somebody on the defensive side of the football for once outside of those guys.
I don't know how much contact you're going to see. Probably very little. I mean, they might they're going to run through their practice, and maybe they're going to do some of their typical drills on a day when they're not doing a full scrimmage. But coming off a scrimmage, and they've got to keep everybody healthy. Now, that's the key.
Yes.
You're 13, 12 days away, whatever it is. It is not a time to lose a key player. For example, at Tennessee, they lost their receiver, Josh Smith, for the start of the season.
He's a big, big player for them, too.
Going to miss the Georgia Tech game and maybe out 4 to 8 weeks. He's got a broken collarbone. And then Kentucky, they lost their senior receiver, Dorian Baker.
That's 2 for them now, isn't it?
They lost a lineman last week.
Oh,
he's got a fractured dislocation of the left ankle. That sounds really bad. Going to miss maybe all of the season. So, I mean, you do what you can. It's football. Guys are going to get hurt, but you just have to make sure you get to the starting line, not limping, but rolling and with some confidence and with some momentum. So, and when we were talking to Muschamp on Saturday, my question to him was along the lines of, how do you plan to bring them along? He said, we're going to get them off their legs here soon and let them get a break from football and get away from it so that they come back refreshed and ready to go.
There was a commonality about that, too, when it comes to what we heard from both coaches this weekend and the fact that this is kind of the third quarter of camp, if you will. We're kind of getting close to the home stretch. And not only as they start school, but as they get to this point of camp, it's very, very imperative that you do not sacrifice what you're going to get from them physically just because they want to try and get some more work in. I think you've done the bulk of your preparation now. You might have a little bit of stuff you want to get in as far as fine-tuning and technique, but now is the time where you need to start conserving yourself not only emotionally, physically, but also mentally.
800-956-7266 is our phone number. That AP poll, let me mention that to you very quickly in case you haven't had a chance to see it or you were blinded by the sun or something this afternoon. Blinded by the light.
Manfred Man.
It is Alabama, number 1 by the AP writers, 52 first-place votes. Ohio State second with 3 first-place votes. Florida State third with 4 first-place votes. And Southern Cal fourth with 2. Clemson, just like with the coaches, ranked 5th but did not receive a first-place vote. Then it is Penn State, Oklahoma, Washington, Wisconsin, Oklahoma State. 11 is Michigan, followed by Auburn, LSU, Stanford, and Georgia. Then it's Louisville, Florida, Miami, South Florida, and Kansas State. 21 is Virginia Tech, followed by West Virginia, Texas, Washington State, and Tennessee.
Is it bad that I could think that Clemson is almost underrated? And I think the only reason that they are where they are ranked where they are is because of the uncertainty at quarterback.
Absolutely.
I think that's the only reason.
If they had a known quantity at quarterback,
they'd be in the top 3.
I don't think there's any question about it. Because each of the 3 ahead of them, each of the 4 ahead of them has a pronounced starting quarterback.
Not a fan of Southern Cal at all. That's way too high for them. In my
I don't know.
mind.
The way they finished, they seem to have a lot of confidence going. The new coach, relatively new coach, seems to have developed a great deal of excitement within the program.
Well, yes.
They got the terrific quarterback, and
It's a tough schedule. It's a tough schedule for them.
Now, you take the thing that jumped out at me is the attitude towards the SEC East. The highest ranked team from the SEC East is no better than 15th, and that's Georgia. So the team that's considered the best team in the East is no better than 15, and then you've got Florida at 17, and then Tennessee at 25.
And I've told you on record,
not a whole heck of a lot of respect for the East.
I'm more a fan of Florida than I am of Georgia, so that doesn't jive with what I'm seeing, at least as far as the forecast goes.
All right, 800-956-7266. What do you think of the poll? Is Clemson right on? Is Clemson a little bit too low, as Willie P is suggesting? If the quarterback. And they seem to be very happy with Kelly Bryant right now going into the opener. He has separated himself quite a bit. Our new poll question this week on Sports Talk, and we thank all of you who voted in the last one, well over 500 votes for the poll question last week. The new poll question, how will USC do in September? They've got 5 games in the month of September. You can choose from 5-0 to 0-5 and everything in between. So make sure you take a look at that and participate in our poll question. Right now, the majority of the voters are saying the Gamecocks will go 3-2 in the opening month. Second most are saying 4-1. One soul says the Gamecocks will go 5-0 in September. Hey, look, who knows? Maybe the Gamecocks are going to be that team this year that comes out of the gate and surprises everybody, sort of like Ole Miss did a few years ago with Chad Kelly when they rose up in the rankings, or Mississippi State with Dak Prescott when they got to didn't they get to number 1 for a short time a few years ago? So Missouri, when they had its run with Coach
Gary Pinkel.
Pinkel?
Yes.
Pinkel?
Gary Pinkel.
Miss old Gary Pinkel. He's a good coach.
He's a fantastic coach.
All right, to Glenn in North Charleston tonight here on Sports Talk. Hello, Glenn.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
Certainly not impressed with the eclipse.
How can you not be impressed with one of the great things that Mother Nature can bring to pass here?
It's cloudy in my world all the time.
Yeah. Well, it was raining down in Charleston during part of this thing, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Had some rain move off from the coast.
Yeah.
So that's what ruined it, in some parts.
No. Hey, that's the luck of the draw, baby.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm around for the next one.
2045.
Yeah.
Make your plans accordingly. August 12th. That will be, I was doing the calculations. I don't, talk a lot of personal stuff here on the show, but for those who care, August 12th, 2045 will be my 64th wedding anniversary.
Man.
Day.
Provided y'all make it that far.
Why wouldn't I?
Or
she, or us. Plan to.
I take nothing to chance.
A lot of people make it to 60 married years and longer. I see that all the time. So I plan on sitting in my yard on August 12th, 2045, drinking wine, and this time having a clear view.
I hope so.
Of the
although I thought it goes up the opposite way though. It's going from southwest to northeast, where this one went northwest to southeast.
You're way ahead of me.
So you might not have a kind of view that we had for this one.
Did you notice that the clouds were coming from the east and the moon was coming from the west?
Yes.
It's kind of weird.
It has to do with the phases, all about that. I'm not very much up in the.
Sounds to me like you've done a lot of reading.
Well, I did only a little bit today, but
did you take astronomy in college when you were at Mizzou?
No, I did not.
Did not?
No. Yeah. I took Bar 101 is what I took.
To what?
I took Bar 101, which it was actually a bartending class at Mizzou.
How'd you do?
I can make a Moscow Mule. I can make it happen.
Good for you. That is a talent that will carry you a long way in your life.
I know how to sling.
Stay sharp with it. All right, a break is coming up. We'll hear from Muschamp on the other side. More of your phone calls, 800-956-7266. Give us a rip. Let us hear from you. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Sign up for that and stay with us on Twitter as well. Back in a moment. It is Sports Talk on a Monday night, downtown Columbia, Main Street, because Sports Talk is your sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina, prior to the eclipse, after the eclipse, and moving forward. Now, I got a text message here from somebody that says the next eclipse with totality in the U.S. is April 8th, 2024.
2 days after my birthday.
That's only 7 years, this person says. Swanee, I saw something on Twitter, and of course, if it's on Twitter, it has to be true, that said August 12th, and the reason I remembered it was because of August 12th, which is a date that I have to remember, or you know what happens. 2045.
I think 45 is the next one we can see in South Carolina, but that's the one. The 2024 one is the one I told you about that comes from the southwest, the northeast.
Well, then that's not related to what I was saying.
So you'll say
I'm talking about the next one where we are the center of the universe.
No, we will not see a total solar eclipse in this area until that date you said earlier, 2045.
Mm-hmm.
This one in 2024 will go through Dallas, Cleveland, Buffalo, and also some of the parts of the Midwest as well.
Well, I'm inviting everybody, all our listeners right now, August 12th, 2045, party at Corn Casa.
It was a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be.
And John Mart, that includes you.
Wow.
You can bring a date if you have one by then.
Oh, well, that's unlikely. I'll be like, hey, Corn, I held a girl's hand by 2045.
A big step for you. A big step forward.
I want to ask you about the poll question that we have up on SportsTalkSC.com, which is, what is September's record for the Gamecocks?
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere between 5-0 or 0-5. What do you have them down for?
I think they can come out of September 4-1.
Oh, well, see, that was my answer. Why'd you have to steal my answer?
Because you asked me first.
Oh,
I mean, I look at it, and they can beat
courtesy.
NC State, and they can beat Missouri. I think Texas A&M will be a very difficult challenge for them out there. But then the other 2 games of the month, Kentucky and La Tech at home, they should win those. So
I think they should win.
4-1 would be a very reasonable expectation.
I think they should win all of them, but I think it's unreasonable to assume that without having seen them in face value for the first time.
Well, you'll be able to come back tomorrow night and give us a better assessment of that. But you know what? I mean,
it's
you
so
have
hard
no
to tell
choice.
even.
You have no choice but to kind of guess and presume at this stage of the year, because you haven't seen them. After they play NC State and we see the good parts and the bad parts, then at that point you'll be able to judge the rest of September.
Right.
But you can't get carried away no matter what happens in the opener. As we saw a couple of years ago when they beat North Carolina by surprise and went on to have a horrible year, and Spurrier walked away, and North Carolina didn't lose again until they played Clemson in the ACC championship game.
And the inverse of that is the same truth as well. I mean, think about that A&M game in 14 where A&M comes out, hangs half 100 on South Carolina, and we thought they were the best things in sliced bread, and Kenny Trill didn't even last to the end of November.
That was the first game post Clowney, post Deb Taylor, post really good defensive players.
Right.
And I tell you, sitting in the press box that night when the Gamecock defense went on the field for the first time, it was like, who are these munchkins out there?
Right.
Because we were used to seeing 6'7" defensive ends with these long wingspans and big bodies, and they sent out a couple of guys who were like 6'2", 6'3", and wow, they had just and you know, Lorenzo Ward was the defensive coordinator, and he said during camp, he said he thought that defense would be better than what they had just lost.
And that's coming off of the Capital One Bowl victory over Wisconsin, 11-2 year, number 9 in the country preseason, and then A&M comes and does that. But as you said, take no overreactions in the opening game, because by the end of it, you could be unranked, which is what A&M was after a while.
By the way, I'm sure Gamecock fans love the fact that ESPN last night replayed the USC Clemson game.
Oh my!
As part of their run of college football games from last year.
That's crazy.
I was just scanning through the channels, and I stopped there because I saw college football. And Clemson had been on for some games, and I was thinking, let's see who they've got the Tigers playing if they're on. And it was the USC game. It was 49-7 in the third quarter with way too much time left. And poor Brandon McElwain was just getting clobbered by that Clemson defense.
Oof.
Now the Gamecocks, as we mentioned, they had their scrimmage, had a big scrimmage this past Saturday. Good news is no major injuries. A little sloppier than Will Muschamp was expecting from his team at this particular point. In fact, let's listen to Will as he describes his take on what he saw out there Saturday.
Just a little bit sloppy for me. I thought the first scrimmage was cleaner as far as our operation on both sides, communication, just little things that we need to clean up. We've got a lot of work to do on South Carolina before we even turn to our first game. But, decently pleased with the effort. We just got to clean some things up, and I'll open up for any questions.
For a guy at his age, Ortre has a lot of the upper body and has a lot of that type of ability to be moving people and be physical with his wide receiver skills. How much of a big feature is that you'll be able to use, especially early on?
Well, there's no question. I think he's continued to progress. We got to do a better job of hanging on to the football in some situations, because that's the most important thing in this organization is the ball. To take care of it as a ball carrier and to get it off people as a defensive player, and that's something today. The ball was a little bit too loose for me.
What kind of day did Jake have?
Good day. I thought that we had some operation. We tried to work a little bit more on tempo, and really this week for the first time we put crowd noise. So now the communication, the nonverbal, the verbal, all of those things that go into making you a good offense, getting set with motion, being able to snap the ball in time. And we had a couple issues today that were sloppy. And again, at the end of the day, you hold your quarterback accountable to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, do you think you're pretty set with your 5 starters on the offensive line, or are those guys still moving around?
No, we're still moving around. I mean, Dennis Daly and Malik are both competing at the left tackle position. Corey and Allen and Donnell and DJ have really distanced themselves inside, and DJ's also kicked out and played some right tackle, and Zach's played some right tackle. So right now we need more guys to step up.
All right, Will Muschamp after Saturday's scrimmage, and as we mentioned, they'll be going back out on the practice field tonight for an open practice at Williams-Brice Stadium, and looking forward to seeing what we hear out of that practice.
How surprised are you that we heard about the left tackle position? It seemed like we thought that Malik Young was going to be that starter there, but according to Will, it seems like there's still more battling going on between him and Dennis Daly.
Right. Listen, when you sign a junior college player, you sign him to come in and play right away, not to sit. And they signed Dennis Daly knowing that they needed help on their offensive line. But it's not settled yet. What surprised me was his talk about the offensive line maybe being a little more in flux than I thought.
Than we thought from talking to the offensive line coach earlier this week. We talked to Wolf earlier this week or last week, and it seemed like he had his 5 ready to go.
Yeah, it seemed like he talked about DJ Park moving around. He talked about Zach Bailey. He didn't make it sound like Zach Bailey was permanent at right tackle.
No, he didn't.
I was a little bit confused by all that. Now, I think the 3 interior guys, Stanley at left,
Helms at right, and Allen not at center,
are pretty much set.
Those are the 3 that are not going to move.
Exactly. We'll hear more from Muschamp coming up. We'll also hear from Dabo Swinney. Boy, what a turn of events at Clemson on Saturday after it appeared the defense was winning every battle head up against its offense. But you never know how things are done. Look, they come out and say the offense really took it to the defense and made big plays. And Deion Kane didn't even play in that scrimmage. They were really impressed with Cornell Powell and some of the other receivers, the young guys, Higgins and Rogers. And how much are they being truthful about that offense, making big plays up and down against the defense, or are they just trying to build up the offense? Because when guys hear themselves being talked about in a positive manner, they start thinking that way. Psychological warfare.
I thought about that myself a little bit, but when you see the body language, whether or not, again, we have no way of knowing because the scrimmage was closed, but, it sounds like even guys like Tavian Feaster, who had taken a couple of steps back, had taken some steps forward, and even, some of the quarterbacks who were the backups actually had good days too. So it seems like whether it's real or fictional, for now, we're starting to see that offense come into its own. Not that we necessarily doubted it, but obviously with the new quarterback, there's still a lot to learn.
Absolutely. Travis Etienne continues to do very well. In case you were wondering, this person who texted me about the next eclipse, 2024 eclipse, crosses the path of totality of today's eclipse directly over the earthquake fault and the convergence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Some people take this stuff real serious. All right, we'll be right back. It is Sports Talk here on, I kind of feel like this is a holiday, though it's not, though school was not in session today. I guess maybe I'm so confused about schools. I mean, some have started maybe and some haven't, and then some took today off because of the eclipse and all that. So, by the way, Willie P has left the studio to head over to Willie B to watch the USC practice sessions because Zoonheit there, Jarmart. You okay?
Tried to flip the switch in time, but I didn't make it. I turned the phone off instead. Sorry for sneezing in the ear.
That's all right. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. A couple of things we've been kicking around. The AP poll, which has Clemson number 5. And our poll question, how will USC do in the opening month? I'm thinking 4-1. I am thinking 4-1 is a pretty reasonable possibility for the Gamecocks. The previous poll question that we had was about Clemson and how the Tigers would do against the toughest teams on their schedule in the first few weeks of the season. And I wanted to pull back up those results very quickly. We had nearly 600 votes come in on that one. And the majority of the voters said the Tigers would let's see if I can figure this out here on my page. Got something a little weird here. Oh, yeah, most of them were saying the Tigers would come in 2-1 against those top 3 teams, Auburn, Louisville, Virginia Tech, all ranked teams by the AP poll. So about 31% went with 2-1. The next highest figure, about 25%, said 0-3. Tigers are not going 0-3, okay, against Auburn, Louisville, and Virginia Tech. Now, Dabo Swinney, the Tigers had a scrimmage on Saturday as well. Last really big scrimmage of camp. And he talked about the offense coming out and really taking it to his defense, which is, the defense has had the upper hand for the most part. Now the offense has its day. He said afterwards he'd really like to see more of an even-sided battle between the two.
When you're the head coach, you're never happy when you walk off these practice fields and you feel like one side has really kind of won the day. I always kind of like to see it be a little more balanced, a little bit more competitive. But today, the offense definitely won the day. Really kind of pushed them around all day, I thought. Won all the 2-minute drills. Way too many big plays. Bunch of big plays. It didn't really matter who was a quarterback or running back or receiver. Just offensively very encouraging from that standpoint, but disappointing defensively because hadn't really seen us have a day like that around here defensively in a while, where we just never could really. We just didn't bring the juice. Just didn't have it. And when you don't bring the juice on this practice field, you get exposed, and that's what happened today. So hats off to the offense. Again, I thought they were tremendous today, and they made some mistakes. We still had a few procedural issues and a few little things that could cost us. But all in all, just throwing and catching and running the football, the consistency, all 3 groups. Really won the day, and then especially to see the 2-minute situations. We had 4 different 2-minute opportunities. I think they won all 4. I know what they can do. And again, for whatever reason, couldn't put it together today. Give the offense credit for that.
All right, Dabo Swinney after the Tigers scrimmage. So, things are starting to come together for Clemson. We're seeing Kelly Bryant apparently taking over that quarterback job. Hunter Johnson probably is going to be the backup quarterback. Right now, C.J. Fuller is your number 1 running back with Clemson. He's come a long, long way from when he arrived from Easley High School. And then you've got, of course, Feaster pushing him hard, and Travis Etienne and Adam Choi. So they've got 4 guys in there. They've got plenty of wide receivers to roll in and out, so there's no shortage of talent there. They've been very high on T. Higgins and Amari Rogers, the 2 freshmen. So they are going to factor in right away. Offensive line-wise, everything seems to be pretty solid there as far as we can tell. Of course, the defense is the defense. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Trey Lamar handles the middle at linebacker, because he's just a physical-looking guy, faster than Boulware, should make a lot of plays all over the field for that Clemson defense. Not taking anything away from Boulware, of course, who was a great college linebacker and may make it with the Panthers. Time will tell. But Lamar is, he's just big and he's fast. But Brent Venables was none too happy with his group. He had very little to say after the scrimmage on Saturday, and what he did say was not very positive about his guys. Okay, let's give you recruiting now. And, of course, on Saturday, while USC was going through its scrimmage, receiver Josh Vann of Tucker, Georgia, was putting on a show as they were playing in that opening classic at Georgia State's new football stadium, formerly known as Turner Field. Have they given that place a different name? I haven't, not all that familiar with it, but they have.
I want to say it's Georgia State Stadium now.
Well, they've redesigned it, to make it football friendly. And that's where they played this thing. And he had a big day. Van did a 79-yard catch. He had 3 touchdown catches, had 1 in overtime, which put his team ahead. Was that the one that was kind of a juggling, diving catch? Anyway, he had a big day. And then he committed to the Gamecocks afterwards. And this is a guy that South Carolina went head-to-head with Georgia for. Now, Georgia also picked up a nice receiver commitment as well on Saturday. So both have come away okay. But, Van, 5'11", 175. Some want to compare him to a Shi Smith type of receiver, though we haven't really seen Shi Smith at the college level yet, but we've heard good things about him. So he gives the Gamecocks now 19 commitments for their 18 class. And from what I understand, 2 other players have to count in this class. So in terms of actual counting numbers, you're at 21 for South Carolina, which leaves you 4 at this point in time. One of those could be defensive end Dorian Gerald, the Florence native at the College of the Canyons Junior College in California. Of course, he's been committed to Tennessee since July 6th. Had a long conversation with him last night, and he's still not finished. He's going to be taking official visits. He still talks to USC every day. Lance Thompson and Will Muschamp. He said nothing has changed between him and the Gamecocks. They have stayed in touch throughout. 4 of his officials are set. 1 will be USC. 1 will be Tennessee. That's November 25th. USC date is not totally set. They're talking about the Wofford weekend. He's not sure about that. Louisville, September 16th, and Florida will get a visit. Final visit still open, LSU, Texas A&M, 2 of the possibilities. So he is definitely looking around. He did say one of the big reasons he committed to Tennessee when he did was on his visit there, he had his entire family. While his previous visit to USC, he only had his grandmother with him. So the official visit to USC, the entire family is going to be there with him. And who knows, that could make a difference in his mind. Defensive back Patrick Surtain Jr. of Plantation, Florida, told 24/7 Sports Clemson is likely to get an official visit this fall, along with his announced leaders, LSU and Florida State. He said he's also looking at Miami, Florida, Alabama, and Ohio State. And in baseball, USC picked up a pair of commitments, one from 2019 left-hander Jonathan Mockamer, North Canton, Ohio, and for the 2020 class, outfielder David Cromer of Lexington. He is the son of former Gamecock star D.T. Cromer, and, of course, part of the very famous Cromer baseball playing family from the Lexington area. That will do it for recruiting here on this Monday night. I think we eclipsed all expectations with that recruiting report. I think we covered everything. I think we took people who were in the dark about recruiting and got them to the light.
The moonlight.
Anything else I can come up with off of the clips? That's about it.
No, I think we should bring this joke dark.
Yes. I did see somebody on Twitter say this is the Eclipse, and he filmed himself taking a package of Eclipse gum and running it past his camera from dark into light and back into dark.
Oh.
Pretty creative on Twitter, aren't they? All right, top of the hour break. A busy hour to come. We'll hear from Willie P. at Willie B. and more here on Sports Talk. And I'm ready to do it. All right, coming down in 3, 2, 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence and the College of the Canyons Junior College in California has been committed to Tennessee's in 3. That's what happens when you have a s at the end of one word and a s at the beginning of the next. 3, 2, and 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of the College of the Canyons Junior College in California and Florence has been committed to Tennessee since July 6th. However, he plans to take other official visits besides one to Knoxville. He's going to visit USC, Florida, and I couldn't find my third one. In 3, 2, 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence and the College of the Canyons Junior College in California has been a Tennessee commitment since July 6th, but he has not shut down his recruiting. Says he's in daily contact with USC coaches. He will take an official visit to USC. He also plans to see Louisville and Florida along with Tennessee. He is undecided about his 5th visit. He says one big thing about his USC visit this time, he'll have his entire family with him, and that could make a big difference with him when it comes to making an absolute, complete, and eclipse-free total decision. All right, let's do it again. In 3, 2, 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of the – you made noise. Thank you. In 3, 2, 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald. Ready to do it. What the heck was that? All right, tell me when. 3, 2, 1. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence and the College of the Canyons Junior College in California has been a Tennessee commitment since early July, but he is not finished with his recruiting by any means. Says he hears daily from USC coaches, and he will take an official visit to USC, along with one to Louisville and Florida, plus his one to Tennessee. He's undecided about his 5th visit. He says it is possible he could be turned away from the Vols, and one big factor about his upcoming USC visit will be that his entire family will be with him this time. Defensive back Patrick Surtain Jr. of Plantation, Florida, says that Clemson is likely to get an official visit this fall, along with his announced leaders, LSU and Florida State. He's also looking at Miami, Florida, Alabama, and Ohio State. Phil Kornblut, South Carolina Radio Network Sports. Is he already there? Hey, give me what's the lyrics in the song "The Road Is Long" and what's the next part? That's all right. I got this. It's a long and winding road that leads a long and winding road that leads to your door. That's my favorite Beatles song. The long and winding. Now I'm going to be singing it all night. Road that leads to your door will never be the same as the time before. How you like that? It ain't over. It ain't over till it's over, and the fat lady has sung, and the eclipse has moved on to the east. Gamecock Nation is praying for a quick recovery. Damn it, Dave Baker. Gerald from Duncan, and we got Willie P. And we got there in a hurry. You said Gerald from Duncan.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblue and Will Pelagic. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
And Willie P. will join us from over at Williams-Brice Stadium in just a couple of minutes. He is getting in position to kind of give us an overview of what it looks like as the Gamecocks prepare to practice at 7:30. Contractual limitations prevent us from talking on scene there after 7:30. So we'll get him on here in just a couple of minutes. Larry Penley coming up, Mick Mixon coming up, a little more Will Muschamp for you as well. David Shelton, too, just a boatload of good stuff. Let's go to Gerald in Duncan for our next phone call here on Sports Talk. Good evening, Gerald.
Good evening, Phil. I wanted to talk to you a little about Friday night. I went down to Somerville to see Spartanburg and Somerville play. And I tell you, I was blown away with how good Somerville looked. That's a really, really good football team. And I'm not just saying it, just to be saying it. They are really good because Spartanburg has a really good football team, and they got some players that are really tricky, Mm-hmm. And I thought that Somerville throughout that game, then they made some mistakes on defense, and they kind of left the door open for Spartanburg with a couple of trick plays here and there, and then they had a kickoff run back for a touchdown. But other than that, they pretty much shut the door there on a regular offense that Spartanburg runs, and they had to resort to doing some things that you don't normally see them doing. But Somerville they were excellent, man. And you know, they had to fight in the game, and I'm hoping that the high school league won't be as harsh on the two teams, because you just don't want to see that, you know, this early.
And that was a long game, and I think that there was an injury to a Somerville player, too, who had to require a stretcher and all that. And also I was listening on the broadcast on our affiliate in Spartanburg, WSPG, and wasn't there a very tough call against Spartanburg late in that ball game that maybe cost them a chance to win?
Well, there was a pass play. Well, it was, I think they call it illegal man downfield, where they threw a pass for a touchdown. But there was also a call against Somerville where they had a touchdown, and both calls, you know, you kind of like, where was that? You know, what happened there? Because we didn't see it. You know, we didn't see the illegal downfield, and nor did we see. I think they call a block in the back on Somerville on their touchdown, but we never saw it. You know, so you know, I don't know. It kind of went both ways, but take nothing away from either team. Both played their heart out. Somerville was clearly the better team. And I'll tell you, if they tighten up a couple of things on defense, that's going to be some kind of game against Dutch Fork Friday after next.
Woo, absolutely. We got some great matchups coming up. Thank you so much. Appreciate your phone call. Well, we'll ask David Shelton if he thinks Somerville is back. He said some good things in the preseason about Somerville, but that's a tough loss for Spartanburg, but also here from afar, not having seen anything, only going by reports. And the way they played that game, if you're Spartanburg, you got to like what your team did and feel like you're going to have a chance for a pretty good year as well. More calls coming up. We have Will standing by over at Williams-Brice Stadium, and let's go over there to get a take from him on how things are looking crowd-wise and what he's seeing from the Gamecocks as they kind of loosen up and limber up and get ready for practice. What's going on?
Well, thank you, Phil. We're here at Williams-Brice Stadium, and the Gamecocks are already on the field. We have some line drills going on right now from the defensive side, and the rest of the team is kind of going through a mock punt drill. As I walked in about 5 minutes ago, there was still a lot going on the field as well, some of the preliminary stretching going on. But the fans are here. They're out in full force. We got about, I would say at least a couple of hundred, at least to start so far, but the traffic is definitely picking up outside Williams-Brice Stadium. I have referees walking past me, so that at least indicates to me that there will be at least some 11-on-11 work done today. Whether it's just special teams or whether they actually line it up and do offense and defense remains to be seen. But it's really nice. It's kind of crisp and calm, and not too hot. Clear skies, and Gamecock football is back, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. While you're there, and I know they're going through warm-up stuff right now, but can you kind of focus on the kicking situation? Do they have the contestants kicking some field goals? And I'm just wondering what it looks like if you are able to see if you're able to see Wozniak and the Parker White, I think it is.
Parker White, yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to watch them compete a little bit there?
They're not kicking yet. Again, like I said, they're doing the punt stuff right now, and they haven't even had him kick it off yet, just because I think they're trying to get the alignment correctly and making sure like their special max protect right now is what they're working on. So to me, it's I guess more technique stuff for at least the time being. They haven't exactly done any kicking at least proper as of yet, but that's certainly something to watch. We'll be watching both sides of the football and special teams as well. It's to me, I'm very intrigued because I'm wondering how much they will actually show the fans, but also us media too, who don't get to see a full practice on a normal basis like this.
Yeah, I don't know if you have your roster with you, but if you do, are you able to identify any guys who are in yellow who will not be participating in practice?
There are a couple of guys who are in yellow, but it looks like that's just the quarterbacks right now. There seems to be nobody off to the side right now. Everybody who is in yellow looks to be a part of that quarterback group right now. So in that vein, I don't see necessarily anybody who is limited at this point.
All right, sounds good. Hey, enjoy yourself, and we will see you tomorrow night back here on Sports Talk.
I'll report back with any details.
Thank you, man. Willie P. at Willie B. watching the Gamecocks go through the early stages of their practice. And we're there because it's the first time all camp that they've opened it up for everybody to come in and watch. We do the same thing with Clemson, but they don't open up anything for an extended period. They do give you well, I think tomorrow they're going to open it up for about 30 minutes for the media, but outside of that, there's nothing open for an extended period at Clemson. All right, Carl in Columbia. Next with us here on Sports Talk. Hello, Carl.
Hey, Phil, J-Mart. How you guys tonight?
Man, we're doing great.
Hey, Phil.
I'm just glad to survive another eclipse in my lifetime.
Well, you and I about the same age, It was one of them things. It's going to come back again.
Well, you're 35 too? That's great, man.
I'm 33, Phil.
33, good.
Sir. Hey, Phil, this is the first time I ever seen ESPNU show a marathon of any college football game. They did that for Clemson Sunday. Did you hear about it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I was just running through the dials, and I stopped there last night and caught the part of the third quarter of the USC game, which, there was no reason to sit there and watch that.
I got up yesterday morning. It showed every game Clemson. I mean, the whole game, not just cuts and bits.
Right. Is this something they're doing with
that's the first time I've ever seen that.
I mean, are they doing it maybe with Alabama and a few of the other top teams just to kind of whet your appetite for the start of the season?
I don't know, but this show at Clemson, I went to bed, woke up, it was still on, playing Ohio State this morning at 6 o'clock. They showed it. Hey, Phil, is the pro not on the show anymore?
Pro's on vacation this week.
Well, look, he's not on the N-Pro anymore when you call you guys. What's up with that?
Is that right? I hadn't even paid attention to that. Yeah.
It's you and Will.
Yeah.
That's it. Is the pro gone? Come on, let's put the pro back up there.
Pro is he is on vacation this week.
Well, you got to put his name on the intro, buddy.
I have to talk to Jarmart about that. He's the intro.
Jarmart, come on, Jarmart.
He's the intro guru.
Yeah. Put the pro on there, Jarmart.
Carl, you're singing music to all our ears here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right. Break is coming up here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. Couple of responses on Twitter to the poll question. And let's see. Evan writes in 4-1 for the Gamecocks. He thinks the 5 games in September. Chris writes in 4-0. It's actually 5 games, Chris. 5. You can't go 4-0 when you're playing 5 games. If you haven't had a chance to vote or respond to our poll question, it's on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. We'll be right back. Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Will Pelagic over at Williams-Brice, and just alerted me that there are no unexpected folks in yellow. The ones who are in yellow as injured are the ones that Muschamp has talked about, Ranrigas, Davis, Stephen Montag, guys like that. So nothing unexpected. The other guys are the quarterback, so nothing to report from that standpoint. David Shelton coming up in just a moment. Get his thoughts on the first Friday night of high school football. But quickly, let's go to Wayne in Spartanburg next up here on Sports Talk. Hello, Wayne.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate everything y'all do down there. Y'all take care of a lot of sports for us. And I just wanted to give a holler out to Marcus Lattimore. I'm a Burns fan, and I've been pulling for Marcus the whole time he was there. And I just hope he goes a long ways in his career. And I just wanted to holler about the new coach at Burns. He done a good job this weekend. The kids came together. There was no penalties whatsoever. It was just a wonderful game.
Thank you. And let me transition to David Shelton. And welcome in, David. Always great to have you. Did you see the Burns-Myrtle Beach result coming like that?
No, I don't think any. I mean, I didn't necessarily think Burns was going to lose. I didn't necessarily think Myrtle Beach couldn't win, but that score and the way it went down, I don't think a lot of people. I don't think Reggie Shaw, the Burns' new head coach, I don't think in his wildest dreams he could have said before that game, "Hey, we're going to go out and win 49-0 or whatever it was." I quit following it when it was like 42-0, so it might have been a lot worse. But Myrtle Beach has issues on defense. They had them in the preseason. They lost a lot of really good players on that defense. You remember last year, it was Myrtle Beach that put it on Burns in the opener. And it was sort of just a reverse. It was Myrtle Beach couldn't get any offense going, and Burns scored on some plays and, threw the ball well, run the ball well, had a bunch of yards. But I think Myrtle Beach is going to have a good enough offense to have a chance to win. But you can't put them in situations where they got to score 42 points to win. That's a little bit tough. So they got their work cut out for them, but I still think Myrtle Beach is going to be fine. I mean, I don't suspect they're going to win their next 9 games because they play some tough people. But Burns will be the one to watch. It'll be interesting to see how they can build on this and see if they can get over that hump and start winning 8, 9, 10 games and making a run.
Well, we had some very interesting games on Friday night besides that one. The Somerville-Spartanburg game, talked with a listener earlier about that, 41-40, the Green Wave. And you had talked about Somerville being improved when we talked to you in the preseason, and I guess they lived up to that. Where do you see Somerville going from here after that win?
Yeah, I think they're very much improved. I still thought Spartanburg would win. I think Spartanburg giving up 41 points is just – I mean, go back and look under Chris Miller, whether he was at Burns or at since he's been at Spartanburg. I mean, you can count on one hand or less the times that Spartanburg or Chris Miller's given up 41 points. But I think Somerville is going to be a good team. I told somebody yesterday, I'm not sure Somerville is as good as they looked. I'm not sure Spartanburg is as bad as they look. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think Somerville is going to be a very solid football team. I think Spartanburg is going to be a lot better. But there will be some suspensions coming down. And in fact, I talked with someone today, not only the guys that were ejected on Friday night, and there were 3 for Spartanburg and 1 for Somerville, I think, there will be additional penalties coming down because several players who were not necessarily ejected were involved, and they go through the films. That's coming down tomorrow. So, I mean, Somerville, Joe Call told me today, he goes, we're going to have more than one because we had a couple of guys who put their hands on other players. And the high school league has stressed it all summer. At the coaches clinic, I was in that meeting, and Charlie Winsky said, if you put your hands on another player, you're going to be suspended. And there was some of that shoving and stuff, so they just went through and writing down numbers. So we'll kind of see where that happens, but I don't think it's going to affect either team's season. I just think that's something we're going to be watching over the next day or so.
How about the injury to the Somerville player late in that ball game, had to be taken off with a stretcher? You know anything more about that?
Yeah, it broke his femur, and which is, it's hard to break your femur, but it was in a non-contact. He was not even involved in contact. He just pivoted, and the torque of his pivot snapped his femur. And, it's hard to break a femur with a sledgehammer. So you had to have some really serious torque and some bending but he was not involved in the contact of the play. So, but unfortunate for him, he was a starting linebacker, a senior. His season's done. Somerville's lost a couple of guys on defense, and they need those guys, some senior guys. So it'll be interesting again to see how they can build on this win. They got an off week, and then they play Berkeley, so that'll be another tough challenge for them. And then they play Dutch Fork. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see where Somerville goes. All
right, a lot of power teams look good. Fort Dorchester, Dutch Fork, Greer taking it to West Side, South Point rolling it up on Northwestern. Who really impressed you the most out of that particular group, or maybe somebody else, maybe Sumter, the way they beat Ridgeview? Of course, that was a one-touchdown game. Any of that group or somebody else really jump out at you?
I thought all those were impressive wins, and I think the Hannah win over Gaffney is something that we're going to watch to see if this Hannah team with a new coach who came from Georgia, won a lot of state titles in Georgia, changed their offense, and they play Spartanburg on Friday. So Spartanburg will be without some players, but if Hannah goes 2-0 with wins over Gaffney and Spartanburg, I think you're going to have to raise the radar on the Yellow Jackets. So that was a pretty impressive win. Now they had to hold on at the end, but they dominated that game for a good portion of it. Had a big lead. I thought Fort in the second half just kind of wore down Dorman. DeCarrion took over, and they also have a little sophomore running back who's going to be a prospect. He had some big runs for him. Sumter's win over Ridgeview is a good win, but we're going to see what happens down the road with both those teams. And I think South Point obviously is, they could make a case as the number one team in the state, any classification. If it's not Dutch Fork, it's probably South Point.
Yeah, very, very deep and talented. Back to the city of Anderson and across town at West Side. I mean, they've been riding so high the last couple of years with Coach Early and what he has done there. And to get off to the start against Greer, 42-14, the loss. Have the Rams lost so much that they're just looking at a down year? I know it's just one game. Or is Greer just that much better this year?
Well, I think Greer is going to be really good, and I think Westside is going to, they lost a bunch of seniors. I mean, you look back at their roster last year, I want to say there were 7 or 8 guys that signed football scholarships, and, Lummy Young and the quarterback Williamson, and they lost some big-time players. So Scott Early is going to win. He wins everywhere, and he wins every year. They're not suddenly going to be 3-7. I just think that Greer was a tough opener for a team that had so many new guys out on the field, and Greer is a veteran team with really good skill people. They're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to be talking about Greer in November. May still be talking about Westside. I just don't know that they're going to be at the level they've been the last 2 years where they won double-digit games.
What's your must-see game for this week?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't really looked too far ahead. I'm looking more towards next weekend already because Fort Dorchester is going to play Dutch Fort. So I'm kind of got my eyes on that one. I'd have to go back and I'll know Friday when we talk about which games are going to be the really good ones. But that Fort D Dutch Fork game has been circled on more than one calendar for 360 days or so.
Yeah, that's going to be a battle, no doubt. Hey, David, thank you, my man. Have a great week. We'll talk to you Friday night as we look ahead to week 2.
Okay, man. Take care.
David Shelton. I call him BIB, best in business. Bib, not Bob, but Bib, best in business. His eclipse watching, I noticed he tweeted out, it was ruined by clouds and rain down there in Charleston, so he was bummed out like I was. All right, we'll be back. More sports talk coming up. Once again, thanks to David Shelton for being with us here on Sports Talk, talking high school football. Let's talk championships, something we love to do here on Sports Talk. And the run of championships in our state continues. This is an individual championship, but it's a team thing as well because it goes back to college coaching and teammates and everything else that goes along with developing a golfer, as Doc Redmond from Raleigh, who was a freshman last year at Clemson, will be a sophomore, won the U.S. Amateur in thrilling fashion. And his coach, Larry Penley from the Clemson Tigers, joining us. This is his second young man to win a U.S. Amateur. And I guess every day in practice, you probably work on how to curl in those 60-foot eagle putts on a crucial next to last hole.
Yeah, I wish we could take credit for all that, but no, not really. But that was amazing to watch, wasn't it?
Unbelievable. I mean, what were you thinking as you watch everything unfold there?
I was sitting at home with my family, and we had just grilled, and we were eating, and you know, he had been up all day. And I'll be honest with you, I watched the first 18 holes on USGA.org, and the back nine of the first 18 might have been the best golf I had seen in a long time. Doc shot 5 under. Doug Gim shot 3 under. So they go into the second 18, and you could tell I don't know if it was fatigue or the wind but their putters weren't as hot. You know, I felt like Doc had let a couple get away, but at no time did I think he was ever out of it, and I promise you he never did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of had a feeling. I mean, we all sit there and had a feeling. I'm looking at my son-in-law and my son, and I'm going, wouldn't shock me if he didn't make this. And I'm a son of a gun, he makes it. But, and I know he knew he was going to make it. Of course, he had to.
Yeah.
And then he hits the 2 great shots and makes the putt. I was absolutely convinced he was making that putt on 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it shocked Gim. I think Gim was totally in shock. I don't think he never collected himself. He was not ready to play the 37th hole, and it cost him the championship.
Tell us about Doc. I mean, as a freshman, he was your low scorer, average of 70.77 on an outstanding team. And now as a rising sophomore, he wins the U.S. Amateur. He seemed to be a quiet kid in terms of the post-round interview on Fox last night. Tell us about him and your impressions of him away from golf.
He is a very quiet. I mean, he's not. You know, he's not going to get your attention by being loud and boisterous. He is a great teammate. Probably best friends with everybody on the team. He just goes about his business. I mean, I honestly think Jordan, Coach Bird and I were talking about this the other night. We need to recruit more mathematicians. And I say that kind of in jest, but you know, Doc has a plan. You know, you can't be a math major and take shortcuts. You know, there's a plan and a process for mathematics. You know, you can't skip over.
Yeah.
Doc gets it. I mean, he really gets it. There's nothing that we don't do from a practice standpoint that he doesn't have a perfect plan in place. And he tells me, he said, Coach, all I want to do is get better 1% every day. I'm going to get better 1% every day. And he goes about his business and gets it done. It's a blessing to watch. He's a very coachable kid. We're going to have to sit down when he gets back. His life is about to get kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, once we get the Walker Cup over with, and we get him back in town, he's flying back into Raleigh tonight, driving to Clemson tomorrow. Classes start Wednesday. So once we can get him kind of reeled in a little bit after the Walker Cup, we're going to really have to sit down and talk about what he wants to do going forward, because he's got some big decisions to make as far as how to handle Augusta, you know, how to handle the British Open, the U.S. Open, and all the other exemptions that come with it. He's about to be tugged and pulled in a lot of different directions, and we need to find out what he wants to do. So,
what do you think that means as far as what he wants to do? I mean, do you fear him dropping out of college to focus on that?
No, not right now. I don't.
Okay.
No, and I don't even think, honestly, don't even think he's thought about professional golf.
Yeah.
You know, there. It's kind of funny with him. There's never really. There might be a tangible outcome or a tangible goal out there, way in the distance, but you know, his daily plans and daily routines and daily rituals are very process oriented, and it's just what he does. I've never heard him talk about professional golf. You know, I want to know if he wants to be the best player in the world. You know, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about. He is such a strong academic young man that you know, his entire family have PhDs. So I don't know if leaving school early is an option for him. I don't know. But we've never really talked about it. We've never really had the reason to talk about it.
Do you remember when Chris Patton won back in the 80s, and
I do,
how you handled that then and how it affected him moving forward? And do you learn anything from that to apply to Doc's case?
Yeah, and it wasn't just Chris. We had let's see. We've had 7 that have played in the Masters with eligibility. So there are a lot of lessons in there. I mean, you know, Ben Martin handled it a little different than Chris did. Danny Ellis handled it a little different than Trahan did. You know, so there's different ways of doing it. Ben was really good about it. Ben, obviously, our team was good, and Ben knew that, you know, we needed him. Ben was smart enough and disciplined enough to keep it on the back burner. But about a month before Augusta, you could tell. I mean, you just saw it in him every day. Chris wore it more on his sleeve every day. You know, he could not wait to get down there. He really wanted to go down there and show the world how good he was, and he did. You know, he was beating Nick Faldo after 36 holes. Faldo ended up winning the golf tournament.
Yeah.
You know, so Chris had a great week.
Yeah.
Doc's gonna, you know, I think when Doc gets that invitation in December, I think, Phil, it'll hit him. You know, and then we're really going to have to come up with a pretty good game plan to keep him focused. He was so funny last night. He was almost apologetic because he's going to miss our first tournament in Dalton, Georgia. I'm going, Doc, you're not going to apologize for making the Walker Cup. He goes, well, I know we finished second there last year, and I finished fourth, and I really like that course, and I really think we had a great chance to go win. I said, well, we still do. We're going to miss you. But, you know, you go out there and win something for your country. I'd rather you do that.
Wow.
You got it.
It's going to be,
you got it.
It's going to be, you know, it's going to be great to watch him and how he handles everything and the notoriety and just having kind of that, not a bullseye on his back, but having that little bit something extra to carry with his luggage as he goes from point A to point B. And I know you guys are thrilled. Real quick, do y'all get anything representative of one of your players winning the amateur? You get any kind of something you can put on your trophy case?
Well, I'm sure we'll do like we did with Chris. We'll buy a replica. We have a Huffmeyer. We have a replica in Chris's name.
Okay,
that's in our clubhouse, and we had 3 guys win the U.S. Public Link, so we've got those replicas as well. And I'm sure we'll do the same for Doc.
Sounds great. Well, listen, congratulations to everybody involved. As he said, it was a lot of people behind him to help him get that thing done yesterday. And enjoy the rest of the summer. We look forward to talking to you during golf season.
You got it, Phil. I appreciate it. Anytime, buddy.
Yes, sir, Coach. Thank you very much. Larry Penley of the Clemson golf team, which, boy, they had a great year last year until they got to the NCAAs. Then it all kind of came apart for him, but they'll be strong once again this year, and they'll be led by the reigning U.S. amateur. And he's right. Think about what's ahead for this kid. Augusta, U.S. Open, British Open, got the Walker Cup coming up. It's going to be a whirlwind of affairs for him on the golf links. Back in a moment. It is a Monday night. We just don't have any Monday night football to talk about. We do have an eclipse to talk about as we welcome the voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon, into Sports Talk. Is in Charlotte today with the big, tall buildings, did it block out the eclipse? You didn't see it?
No, it wasn't much of an event here at Corn. I think it's this thing, I'm no staff meteorologist, but I think a few miles makes a huge difference from where you are and where you saw it. I was in the upper deck of the stadium. A bunch of the Panthers staff, 45, 50, 60, 70 people, all kind of in the lower bowl and the upper deck and on the field to watch it. And the net effect was that it looked like a cloud kind of moved across. Even though it was the moon, it never really got all that dark here.
That's the same cloud that moved over my house and blocked my view. Very, very same cloud.
Yeah, we had guys with the welder, some of the guys that work in the shop, they had their welder's helmets ready to just tear right at it. But I don't know. It kind of reminded me of the Panthers' second preseason game. It was a little hard on the eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us more about that game and what you take away from it.
Well, I won't tell you what I think. I'll tell you what Coach told us, and that is that he was disappointed with the sloppy turnovers and these world get propped up with the turnovers. But Coach said after he studied the tape, he saw a lot more good things. He saw the offensive line play well, saw David Mayo really stand out on defense. Defensive line played pretty well. And you can't excuse the ball security. That'll have to be cleaned up. But Coach Rivera was not as displeased when he watched it on tape as he was with his naked eye view of it.
All right, so looking at some notes from practice today, looks like Newton got a little bit more work, and is it their plan to let him play some this week?
Yeah, I think so. He threw the ball well today. He told Coach afterward he felt a little bit late on his timing, and that'll all come. But I think the Panthers want to get him lathered up in preseason game number 3, and then just see how the game goes. If the Panthers were to drive the ball, if Newton plays, if the Panthers could flip the field, move across the 50, maybe get points, then maybe shut him down after that, or just keep him playing, let him play until he gets a good feel for it. But I think the scenario the Panthers do not want is going to San Francisco without Cam having had the benefit of a real dress rehearsal.
Everybody's talking about Christian McCaffrey and how he looked the other day, but what about Cameron Artis-Payne and his performance in Nashville? And apparently he's having a real good camp.
He is. Great question. Cameron Artis-Payne, I think, has made an NFL team with what he's done this month. It may not be the Panthers. It may be the Panthers. But he's proven he can play in the league. He had a real nifty stutter go, a couple of good pass pro blitz pickup. So it's going to be some very tough decisions for the Panthers in several positions.
What's going to happen at punter? You think our local guy, our South Carolina kid, Andy Lee's going to – of course, he's a veteran, and he's had some great years. Is he going to be able to hold on to the job?
Michael Pilardi's punting well, and Pilardi's left-footed, so the ball would spin counterclockwise off his foot. Maybe, I don't know if there's any science behind this, but maybe a little more difficult to track the Pilardi punt. So it's going to go – I mean, this is a punt-by-punt battle right now. It's a great battle going on in camp.
Yeah. How did Damiere Byrd look to you on Saturday?
He didn't get targeted as much. He looked comfortable and fast as usual, but we don't have the sample size from preseason game number 2.
Mm-hmm. Is there much of a battle going on at this stage for backup quarterback?
That's another good question. I think Derek Anderson, Joe Webb's versatility argues in favor of keeping him around. I think Garrett Gilbert could be more than just a guy. He played at SMU, played at Texas, and 6'4", looks good on the hoof, can spin the ball. I don't really think he's out of the mix. I could see him making the practice squad.
Yeah. All right, so it's It's Jacksonville this week, and that is coming up on Thursday. So, I mean, a quick turnaround. You play on Saturday and travel home. You get Sunday off, go back to work today, and got to turn around and play a game on Thursday. And usually, and you know this much better than I do, but the third preseason game when you're playing four, isn't it that third game where most of your starters get a lot of work and you try to look like the team you're going to put out there for the first game of the regular season?
Exactly. Yeah, coach's game plan for this game. It simulates very closely what a regular season game plan, meetings, and what the coaches like to do is get the starters some time early in the third quarter so that they can all practice with their halftime adjustment. So it's unique in the NFL preseason universe.
Yeah. The Jaguars really bad team. Really bad right now. Bad.
Well, they got quarterback issues. They got to figure out, Bortles and Henne, they got to get their quarterback question solved.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got a good roster. It's just they got to have a trigger man.
Well, I'm a little surprised that you don't have a little band gig going here on Eclipse Night in America. I thought maybe you might have something lined up somewhere.
No, we're shutting it down for a while, Corn. It's just toting that equipment and chasing all those, dealing with all those surly wedding coordinators and mothers of the brides. I mean, it can wear on you.
I imagine your band would be like the one in the movie. No, not Animal House. What is it? The guys in Las Vegas.
Wedding Singer.
No.
Wedding Crasher, Wedding something or other?
No, not Wedding Crasher. The ones where the guys were in Las Vegas. They made the franchise out of it. The Hangover. When they at the very end where they show up at the wedding and the guy singing, the band is playing and the guy is singing horribly out in front. I mean, not that your singer does sing horribly, but that's kind of what I would envision your band looking like at a wedding.
Well, being that I'm married to the lead singer, be careful what analogy you pull from.
I'm sure she sings like a robin.
She's got soul. She can sing Janice, Patsy, Aretha, anything you can name. She can deal it out.
I have no doubt. Let's move away from this, and we will talk to you next week and see how the Panthers do on Thursday night and catch up with you next week.
Look forward to it, Corn. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye. Before I dig myself any deeper in that hole. That was a rabbit hole I did not want to go down.
That was deep.
That was getting kind of deep. Hey, I just looked outside. It's gotten dark. Has the moon come back the other direction and blocking the sun? Do we have another eclipse going on?
I mean, and people,
or is it just night?
People are looking at me for the first time. I want back in the limelight.
There's animals out there that don't know what the heck's going on. The day was too short for them.
We saw the cicadas and some bats come out.
Oh, I heard them. Yeah, and the crickets and all that kind of stuff that come out at night. Crazy, man, crazy. All right, that is going to put a wrap on Sports Talk tonight. I do want to take a quick peek. Let me see here real quick, see if David Hood has any notes up from Clemson's practice this evening. Let's see here. Not really. Clemson police released a Star Wars Eclipse video. That's the big news out of Clemson today. Tavian Feaster, helping Travis Etienne, says he got better as well after the scrimmage. So no new notes yet from Clemson, but we'll have coverage of Clemson's post-practice for you tonight up on the website, SportsTalkSC.com. Nothing is coming out of USC. There's no meeting with the media after their practice. The next meeting for the Gamecocks with the media will be tomorrow, and we'll have that covered for you as well. And so the music's going to end, but we're going to have a few extra seconds to kill here. It's a eclipse issue that we have here on Sports Talk on a semi-regular basis. But now we will sign her off, and we will see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.